right. What a wonderful day to be alive and to have all of the fullness and the goodness that is existent for us. It certainly is quite amazing and quite wonderful, and uh, hopefully your perception is not fearful. uh, been quite powerful lately that there are many things that unfortunately we can do to, I guess, liberate ourselves faster. Uh, but at the same time, we also can do things that will actually be stumbling blocks to ourselves. And so it's certainly a very long journey. Welcome to each and every one of you. I would say to you, namaste, as we come together. Whoever comes along and spends some time with us. We're working through the Nag Hammadi. Uh, Certainly, with anything, having wisdom and understanding accounts for a lot. Uh, we had a lot of really amazing ancient knowledge that has been ripped from us. And those of you who maybe are on the journey and are studying and stuff, you will find that over and over again that unfortunately we have been misled to believe that all of the things, maybe if you grew up in Christianity, which is our society or has been, that you were told that it was sacred, and anything outside of that. In fact, in many religious circles, if you study any ancient text instead of the Bible, and yet the Bible very clearly says that you should study. That's one of those little hidden blessings in there, and so it's quite important that we come to a place. You can't set good intention. You can't do some of the things that are necessary to be successful. You can't typically do those things without some form of knowledge. Now, that being said, does man's knowledge, or the knowledge that we possess as humans, trump divine intuition and what you might call supernatural downloads of knowledge that you just received knowing? And the answer is no, but I would also like to say this. If it was truth 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 250,000 years ago, if it was true divine truth, then it's still truth today. And so that's one of the things that I think is that I see. I don't struggle with it. In fact, I'm very much drawn, because I don't believe that you can see what's in front of you until you know what's behind you. And there have been, by the understanding, there has been 6 complete cycles of humanities that have risen up, existed, and disappeared. And so I suspect that it would be really quite naive, and I would even go on the order of ignorant, for us to believe that there's nothing in all of that we can possess, especially since it's pretty much known that they functioned at a higher intelligence level than what we are. We are the lowest conscious beings that have ever existed, ever. We are. This society, this earth as it is, that's why the earth is coming apart. We are in the middle of a really huge thing that's going on. We're in the middle of something that is spiritual on every level, including the earth. And so there's a lot that's available for you to study and read, more hours than you could spend in a lifetime just to study the things that are already known, and yet to most people they're not known at all. And so we get into all of these different thought processes and things that we convince ourselves of. So the first thing is that there's nothing to fear but fear itself. I assure you that if your heart is pure and you are walking towards the light, Source will make sure that you have the things in your path that bring you to that place. Of course, you do have a responsibility to discern between light and dark, right and wrong. None of those things go away because we're in a spiritual realm. They're actually the things that we use to balance, guard, and protect ourselves. So if you hear something and it sounds good, but it causes you to do wrong things, then that should for you be the giveaway. And that's where the whole conscious and what's going on inside of people really is going to be a thing that is either really positive for them or not so positive at all. And I'm going to try to steer away from some of the things because I don't feel like that I've had an opportunity for me to feel comfortable to share many of the things that we're actually living in right now. We are in a special time. This special time, this special season, the path and the pattern that we've gone through is not ongoing forever. That is to say, I would say it like this, that we are in a portal of time. And there's much that has been said about that over the last 10,000 years. And all of the ancient societies talked of the very day in which we live in. But it's not as was propagated by Christianity and the Bible as being the end of time. It's about the beginning of a new cycle. And many people will not make that connection with the new cycle. And it's a really sad side effect that the most important thing that has ever happened in this time, in this seventh cycle of humans, is so little talked about and so undesirable, or people are just not concerned. And so, I mean, it is what it is, and the universe and the all is going to get what is desired out of this. And so we can go back and forth, and Christianity's been really good about this, about is everybody saved, and those are really fruitless conversations. Suffice to say that if you come to the knowledge and ignorance is taken away, then everything after ignorance is taken away is intentional. And so if you intentional are not concerned about what is, then that's where you'll reap from. On the other side, if you intentionally are concerned about what is, you will reap the harvest of that as well. And so it's just a journey, and it's quite long and quite beautiful and quite amazing, and you get to find out who the Creator is in an everyday journey. Many people may not. I can't help that. But I do know from my personal experience that it is true, that He is with us, constantly showing, that the Spirit is constantly showing. And now, as we grow and learn, we find out that that Spirit actually is now and always has lived inside of us. So we could have always had the ability to access all that is had we known. And so that's why they call this time a time of remembering. We have existed at this place in the past, in other cycles. The problem is as a whole, as a society, we have not existed in this place in this cycle. And unfortunately, this cycle is coming to an end. So it really is. For some, it's going to make you very joyful that you have an opportunity for your frequency to rise and for you to walk into something supernatural. And for others, it's going to depress them. I can't help you with that. You have to deal with who you are. And if you choose not to do that, I can't help you with that either. So all that can really be done is information put in front of you. And as we found last time, I really all week have been applying this of trying not to feed the wrong animal the wrong food. And I'll admit it's a little bit more of a journey than I had reckoned for. It gets very difficult if you possess truth to shut your mouth and not share it. And so we're going to look today. This will set some of the things up. Is this going to enlighten you? For some, it may very well turn on some lights. And for others, it will fall on dead ears. But such is the existence in this place in which we live. And so the nature of the rulers in the Nag Hammadi, which is where we're at, Mariana has told me that she has put a hyperlink. For those of you who may not have the Nag Hammadi, maybe you come along, you don't know us, you haven't been with us. There is a link that she has put down in the description bar or wherever they do that on YouTube that you can click on that will take you to a very nice PDF of the nature of the rulers. This section of writing really has an overlay of the Sethian, and I know some of you may not have ever even heard that, but there were multiple disciplines of Gnosticism that went on for thousands of years. Seth, we all know Seth as the, if you would, the third son of Adam. He was the pure one. And so there's much significance in that. I will also tell you that I've recently heard some channelings from the 1960s that were channeled, and the channel came through from Seth. Now this channeling went on for 10 or 12 years, teaching instruction through a human, which is what we were all really created to be. To be honest with you, all of us are created to be a channel. You don't possess anything, and yet you possess everything. To be a channel, it is source sending things through you. And that is maybe one of the most significant revelations that some of you might get today. There is nothing that exists that is yours, and yet you own all of it. And so, how does that work? Well, that is a longer story. So, just suffice to say that what we're capable of possessing is quite large compared to what we're aware of, but it's also quite large that what you do with it determines everything. And so when you come into that place of beginning to understand, please hold that in your mind. There's a few things. First off, this whole journey on earth for us is a school, and yes, it is a school. Now, there are some things above that, and I won't talk about that. But suffice to say, for every one of us, a major part of our coming into this time was to learn. Well, why do you talk about ascending? How do you ascend? You ascend by learning how to control the power that we already are. Stop and think about that for a minute. What I just said. If you really understood that you have a responsibility according to Source to learn how to control the power that we already possess. Well, that's really difficult if you heretofore haven't had any knowledge that you even possessed such power. And of course, then the rulers of darker matter have been very successful in keeping you from knowing who you are. And that's what all of these systems are about. That's what religion is about, is to keep you from having knowledge of who you are. And so as we come to a place of the remembering, maybe some of you, I said this I think on Wednesday, that I would expect some of you will begin to get little flashes and little glimpses. And if you do, appreciate those. Value them. Certainly contemplate on them. Think about them. But understand that you're just getting little glimpses and glitches of pieces of things that are real and large and huge, and inevitably will become of those who are in a higher frequency range inside of yourself, will begin to function in those things more fully. So there is a piece that the higher your frequency is, the more powerful you become. And that's why you see some people who possess no power. There's multiple reasons for that. While others are functioning and seeing massive shifts in the cosmos and in understanding. And that comes because of who they are inside. The major separation that is coming is going to be based on nothing else except what your frequency is in you. And we've heard that 1,000 different ways and never probably understood it, maybe in the way, for me anyways, the way that I understand it now. This isn't about you being saved. This isn't about, I mean, you could term things a lot of ways. This is about you coming to a place inside of you of the purest honesty that can exist. To authentically look at yourself and begin to then take steps to destroy the aspects of yourself which do not promote higher frequency. And it's funny because there's lots of information about the things that will help, like vitamins for your spirit journey. And all of the speakers have spoken of these things. They're not new, and they're certainly existent. Edgar Cayce talked about them constantly in his 14,000 writings. How you could raise your frequency, and it has to do with you and your behavior. So his supernatural spirit healing was about you fixing you. That's something you might want to give some concern to. And so the book we're going to read here this morning is The Nature of the Rulers. If you've been with us, it's the next book in the Nag Hammadi and Codex 2. I shared a little bit last week. You will hear other stories and even modern channelings that are coming through. And so the term archon is not necessarily, would not be maybe in the same place that you might hear of a Pleiadian or you hear of an Arcturian. Those are actually solar systems in places that exist. An archon has more of the concept of the reality of the rulers. Okay? Yeshua, although taken out of the Bible, Yeshua alluded to the archons, and in the writings outside of the Bible, Yeshua talks about the archons. So it's not as if this is something that is far-fetched unless you're just a Christian and you never opened your eyes past what they were telling you the Bible said to go find truth for yourself, which is exactly how they keep you in control. And so the nature of the rulers. Concerning the reality of the rulers, the great apostle through the Spirit of the Father of Truth. So I'll just share another little piece that kind of popped into my mind the other day. You sit in a Christian church, if you were a Pentecostal, you certainly do. You sit in a Christian church and you let some guy come to your church and he bilges you for all your money and he prophesies over you, and you call that okay, and yet you refuse to accept messages that are truly channeled through a spirit being. I can't tell you the scams of evangelists that I've watched come into a church and built a church of all the money they could get and leave, and everything they did was false. And some of you have been just as guilty as I have about filling those people's pockets full of money. And yet, when true wisdom comes, you can't discern that it's spiritual wisdom. Just so you know, God has always spoken to people both psychically, in other words, by downloads into their understanding, and by men. If you are not in a place spiritually where you can handle, maybe you're too immature, maybe you're too far away from walking in power, and Source is still kind. He sends information. He just has to use someone else instead of using you. Many of you have never had a download that you recognize. Does that make you less? No. In fact, it simply tells me that it all is based on each individual person's desire and ability to apply themselves to seek the truth. That's why Yahusha said, those that seek are the only ones that will find. Those who seek to higher and increase their frequency in this time are the only ones that will ascend. The only ones. Everyone else will continue on in the dense dark matter, and they will never see the ascension that is taking place right now. And it is true. Certainly I don't mean it in a negative or a mean context, but it is true that you will have no one but yourself to blame. You can't blame this on the devil. You can't blame this on the church. You can only blame it on you didn't care enough and pay enough attention to learn how to function in a spirit realm that you know nothing about. It's not like that's a negative statement. None of us know how to function fully. But if you close off the enlightenment that God is sending you through other people because you don't possess the ability to, then you've now done kind of what I'm seeing in our world. You've now doubled down on the wrong. Hopefully you'll come to a place where you will double down on the right. But it's not going to come to you free. There's a journey here, friends. And so, concerning the reality of the authorities, the great apostle, through the Spirit of the Father of Truth. Why I stopped there and said what I did is because if we will now take some of the vernacular that's functioning in our arena, what I will just say to you is this great apostle channeled what the Father had to say to him. I've said 1,000 words that were channeled. They weren't my knowledge. They came from someplace else, but that knowledge was put inside of me. That's a channel. And so that's all that these people, every one of the people, the prophets in the Bible, they were nothing but channels, friends. God spoke to them. They told the people around them what God said. If you notice, they always have to go pray. If you notice, Yahusha had to go pray. Why? He needed to get a new download so he would know what to do next. It's exactly what you see functioning. And all you have to do is learn what truth is, and then you can discern what is truth and what's not truth. And so concerning the reality of the authorities, the great apostle, through the Spirit of the Father of Truth, referred to the authorities of darkness and told us our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the authorities of the world and the spirits of wickedness. So God is now giving us a channel. He's giving us a download. He's giving us truth. And he's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's the God of truth. That's where the emanation of truth only comes from the all. And so I have sent you this writing because you have asked about the real nature of the authorities. The blind demiurge. Many of you may not have any knowledge of the demiurge, the creators. That's what the demiurge are, is the creators. And you're going to find out here very shortly that what was given to you was given to you. Now, I have had conversation and I have studied a lot of what Jewish rabbis teach and believe, and it's not what Christianity says that the creation story was about. They have all kinds of things, like other wives Adam had, and that Eve was bred by a snake, and Cain was actually the offspring of a snake. And every Christian that knows nothing about anything except what their preacher told them condemns those people. And to be quite honest with you, there's more proof historically that they're correct than that you are. But if you're ignorant of history, then you have no clue. So the leader of the authorities is blind. The demiurge are blind. Hold that thought in the back of your mind. And because of his power, ignorance, and arrogance, he said with power, I am God, and there is no other but me. So here's where you kind of have to take your breath. Who do you, if you were in Christianity, especially if you had any kind of pastor worth any kind of salt, who is it that is recorded in the Bible that Christianity uses that I am God, I am a jealous God, and there is no other but me? Well, you were told that God is this bearded man who has a robe that fills the temple with glory and sits in the heavenlies and is very stately and has angels all around him singing and stuff. So for you, prior to Christianity, that wasn't the belief system. So this is all a concocted story. Christianity is. And so the leader of the authorities is blind, and because of his power, ignorance and arrogance, he said with power, I am God, and there is no other but me. So we were told in Christianity that we could put confidence in that because God was a jealous hell, and God was not going to put up with, and that we are to love the Lord. Listen to how many times maybe you said this. You are to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind, and you're only to lean on what he tells you. Let's see how that works out prior to Christianity. And so when he said this, he sinned against the realm of the all. So what's one takeaway we could get here if we didn't get anything else? This God that said, I am the only God that there is, which is your Christian God, sins against the all. So what does that also tell you? That tells you that all is not God. All is the Creator. But what we have been told is the picture of a God is not speaking of all. And so for some of you, that might be a little bit difficult because you thought that there was only one. You didn't understand that there is a plethora of spirits that are called gods. In fact, before we lost our wings, we were called gods. That's why Yahusha said, do you not know that you now, even in this existence, are a God? If you knew you were, you would step into the power which you already possess. That's what this whole awakening and enlightening thing is about. It's about doing what Yahusha said that we should be doing. Why have people not been doing it? Why have you never healed anybody? Because you have no clue who you even are or that you possess that powder. It is a very good deception, and it has been very successful in keeping the power that is available to every one of us hidden. You have it, but it's useless. And the only thing that makes it not useless is you. And so, when he said this, I am God and there is no other but me, he sinned against the realm of the all. And there's a picture that I'm starting to see that's starting to form about this whole concept of all. This boast rose up in incorruptibility. And the voice answered from incorruptibility and said, you are wrong, Samael, which means blind God. His thoughts were blind. He expressed his power, that is, the blasphemy he had uttered. So while all of you think that this thing that you read in the Bible your whole life about God is this great thing and he's the only God and there's no gods before him and it's just like there's only one that exists, you now are getting the backstory that existed 200 years before Christianity, and they didn't believe anything that the Christians believed. And so his thoughts were blind, and he expressed his power, that is, the blasphemy he had uttered, and pursued it down to chaos, and his mother, the abyss, at the instigation of Pistis Sophia, she established each of his offspring according to its power, after the pattern of the eternal realms above. Pistis, you will find out, Sophia, Pistis is wisdom. For the visible originated from the invisible. Incorruptibility looked down into the regions of the water. The earth was covered with water. Her image appeared as a reflection in the waters, and the authorities of darkness fell in love with her. Wisdom. But they could not grasp the image that appeared to them in the waters, for they were weak. So you could say there's a little metaphoric statement there that you can't grasp the wisdom that exists for you because you're weak. And what is only of soul cannot grasp what is of spirit. Many of you may remember the verse that says that a carnal mind, Paul said this, a carnal mind cannot understand the things of the Spirit, neither should it be able to. So this isn't really some far out thing. Paul is 200 years over here later, and he's teaching the same thing in different words. For the authorities were below, but the image of incorruptibility was from above. That is why incorruptibility looked into that region, so that by the Father's will she might bring all into union with the light. You'll see that the light is all about everything. And the rulers made plans, the creation of Adam and Eve. The rulers made plans and said, come, let's create a human of soil from the earth. They formed their creature as a being entirely of the earth. Why is our mother, our true mother, Mother Earth? These archons have bodies that are both female and male, and faces that are the faces of beasts. They took soil from the earth, they formed their human after their own bodies and after the image of God that had appeared to them in the water. They said, come, let's grasp the image by means of the form we have shaped, so that the image may see its male partner and fall in love with it. And we may seize it with the form we have shaped. They did not understand the power of God because they are powerless. Samael blew into his face. There's the breath. So here's a stark thing for you. The breath that was blown into the nostrils was not of all. It was a blind demiurge. Samael, the one that is blind, you remember they gave you that definition. Samael means the one that's blind. Blew into his face, and the human acquired a soul, and they stayed upon the ground for many days. The rulers could not make him arise because they are powerless. So they created him and they breathed some form of life into him, but he had nothing. He had no ability to do anything. And like the storm winds, they kept on blowing, that they might try to capture the image that appeared to them in the water. So what they wanted was this thing to manifest so that they could possess it. And they did not know what its power was. All of these things came to be by the will of the Father of the all. Now you can take that, it's semantics, or you can look that maybe there's even more past the more that we don't know, and past the more that we don't know about the more that we don't know, that there might actually be more that we don't know about the more that we don't know about the more that we don't know about the more that we don't know. But I'm telling you that kind of strikes me that we're now talking about a Father of the all. What does that mean, dear one? And so later the Spirit saw the person of soul upon the ground. The Spirit came forth from the adamantine land. It descended and made its home within him. And that person became a living soul. So then, without our spirits, so here's for your understanding towards reincarnation. Your body is no different than the body that is being discussed here of Adam. Until there is spirit in you, you are nothing. When your spirit leaves this body, it is nothing. It's just dead. I mean, they really got a good scam going on. People die and there's nothing there but flesh and bones that are going to rot, and they charge you $20,000 to bury it in the ground. And so, the Spirit came forth from the adamantine land. It descended and made its home within him. So the Spirit entered him and something happened. And the person became a living soul. So would it be so difficult for you to understand that when the Spirit comes in you, you become a living soul, and until that Spirit inhabits you, you are not a living soul? Many believe that you do not enter your physical body until that baby is already out of the mother's womb. The Spirit does not come into incarnation. That the physical growth of a baby is totally separate from the Spirit that enters it. And then, when it did, it became a living soul, and the Spirit called his name Adam, since he was found moving around upon the ground. And so you get a little tweak out of that, out of the Hebrew Genesis, that he was called Adam because he was the Adumah, the Hebrew word, which is where they got the word Adam from, has to do with the ground. And a voice came from incorruptibility to help Adam. The rulers gathered all of the animals of the earth and all of the birds of the sky and brought them to Adam to see what Adam would call them, that he might give a name to each of the birds and all of the animals. The rulers took Adam and put him in the garden that he might cultivate it and watch over it. They commanded him and they said, "You may eat from every tree in the garden, but do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Do not touch it, for the day that you eat from it, you will surely die." They said this to him, but they did not understand what they said to him. rather by the Father's will. So this lie, this corruption was played through these authorities, but it was all still part of. So here's in our everyday life. When you ask yourself, well, why did this bad thing happen? It happened because you needed it. That's really difficult for us as humans to understand, that the things that happen in our life, this to source, to the all, to the universe, this isn't about our pain. They do not feel pain. It's all about you learning. And if you can only learn through pain, then you must have pain. And that's really foreign to us. We live our whole lives trying to run from pain while we do most of the causing of the pain ourselves because we refuse to learn. But it is wonderful. It is as sacred as the good things that happen to you. Not near as fun, but they're just as necessary. That's why the song Sing the Rain, Bring the Rain is a Christian song, but I'm telling you, the metaphysical, spiritual truth of that song is 100% correct. Of course, it's written by a modern person who is more of a mystic Christian than they ever would have been a fundamental Christian. And so the rulers took Adam, they put him in the garden, they command him to take care of it. They bring these animals, they tell him don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and do not touch it, for the day you eat from it you will surely die. So here's something else that you see that you pick up here that's been washed out of the Bible. The comment that Eve made about we were also told not to touch it, that's here. It's not in the Bible. Nobody can make sense when they read that God tells Adam, don't eat of it, and Eve tells the serpent, oh, but we weren't supposed to touch it either, but that never came through to Adam. And you find it here. Why? Because it existed. Why is it in the Bible? Because it existed. It wasn't convenient for the narrative they were trying to write. So they wrote it out. As is often the case. And so they commanded him, you may eat from the tree in the garden. Remember, this is not the all. This is the demiurge. This is the archons that are saying all of these words that are attributed to the Bible. Not the Creator. And do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Do not touch it, for the day that you eat from it, you will surely die. They said this to him, but they did not understand what they said to him. Rather, by the Father's will, they said this in such a way that Adam might eat. And Adam might not perceive them as would a completely material person. The rulers plotted together and they said, come, let us make a deep sleep fall upon Adam. Is it any clearer to you that there was a narrative that was written and they left about half of it out because it wasn't convenient for what they wanted you to believe? You can't find that information in Christianity, though. You can only find the information once you get out of Christianity. The Bible says, study to show yourself approved. I was taught in Christianity, the Bible says, study the Bible to show yourself approved. And that's not what it says. And so the rulers came together and they said, let's make a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. So Adam slept. The deep sleep they made to fall upon him, and he slept is ignorance. They cut open his side like a living woman. Then they repaired his side with flesh in place of her. And Adam had only a soul. That, my friend, is the separation of the duality of humanity. You don't understand in the spirit realm what is going on. Actually, homosexuality is an emblem and a symbol towards enlightenment. That may confuse some of you, but let me explain, and it may not be as difficult as you might think. Why is it that femininity, women as a whole, are bleeding and morphing back towards more and more and more masculine? Why are men as a whole becoming more and more and more effeminate? And it's happening society-wise, it's happening worldwide. That is because as the veil thins and we come closer, we have an innate desire inside of us to be made whole once again, both masculine and feminine. Understand, when Adam was one, Adam was complete. When they cut him open and removed the feminine aspect, they made him singular. What he is saying is that for two to become one had nothing to do with having sex. It was a craving even then for him to gain his femininity back. You must have it to be a complete person. And so Adam slept in the deep sleep they made to fall upon him. He slept his ignorance. They cut open his side like a living woman. Then they repaired his side with flesh in place of her. And Adam had only a soul. So they had taken part of him out and he only left a soul. The woman of spirit came to him and spoke with him, saying, "Arise, Adam." And when he saw her, he said, "You have given me life. You will be called the mother of the living. For she is my mother. She is physician, woman, one who has given birth." Adam and Eve in the garden. The authorities approached their Adam. When they saw his female partner speaking with him, they became aroused and they lusted after her. They said to each other, "Come, let us ejaculate our semen in her." And they chased her. But she laughed at them because of their foolishness and blindness. In their grasp, she turned into a tree, and when she left for them a shadow of herself that looked like her, they defiled it sexually. Do you know what was just said there? The spirit that is Mother Earth that was inside of Adam was chased by the demiurge, and she changed herself into a tree, but she left an emblem that looked like her. Do you know who that is? That's Eve. Eve was, as the Hebrews say, impregnated outside of Adam. And they defiled it sexually. They defiled the seal of her voice, so they convicted themselves through the form they had shaped in their own image. So this thing that they created in their own image is the thing that actually ended up defiling them. Oftentimes, we must be careful. The thing that you feared has come upon you. That principle never goes away. The thing that you created for harm for someone else will bring harm on you. The thoughts that you have of ill and the psychic power that is used of ill will destroy you. The principle's always the same. Whatever you do, you get back. What we had little kids things when I was a kid. You know, there was a couple of little kids sayings that whatever you do to me, you know, comes back to you. Believe it or not, friends, that's really a quite powerful spiritual truth that little children used to run around. I don't know that they even know it anymore. And so, They defiled the seal of her voice, so they convicted themselves through the form they had shaped in their own image. Then the female spiritual presence came in the shape of the serpent. So who did this? The female spiritual presence. What does that say to you, dear one? The snake that you've been told your whole life that Jesus was going to crush its head and that it was horrible and abominable was actually the spirit. A total concoction and twisting of what is said. I read it to you again so you don't get confused. Then the female spiritual presence, the one that entered Adam, came in the shape of the serpent. So honestly, if you want to know the truth about who the serpent in the garden was, it was the female spirit. And the instructor. Why was it there? Why did it ask her questions? Because it was an instructor. Funny how it would have changed the whole belief system of Christianity had any of this ever been put in there. Of course, they destroyed all of it that they could. That's why you don't know all these things. It was done intentionally so you did not know. And so the serpent taught Adam and Eve and said, "What did Samael say to you? Did he say, you may eat from every tree in the garden, but do not eat from the tree of knowledge and of good and evil?" The woman of flesh said, not only did he say, do not eat, but also do not touch it. Now see, now the narrative comes right back to what it says in Genesis. That's what Eve said. Eve said, the thing told us, not only don't eat it, don't touch it. And so now the narrative had a loop in there, and now it's come back together, and now we're back to where the biblical line is for a minute or two. And the woman of flesh said not only, and I'd like to make the point out, this is the woman of flesh now. There's no question we're not talking anymore about the spiritual Eve. Now we're talking about the physical Eve again. Not only did he say, do not eat, but also do not touch it, for the day that you eat from it, you will surely die. The serpent, the instructor, said, you will not surely die, for he said this to you out of jealousy. So what was the deal? The deal is the demiurge knew that we were exceptional. If you haven't ever heard this, I've known this for quite some time. We were hated, Yeshua was hated because of our humanity, friends. And I didn't understand it because I see us as being weak humans, because most of the humans I know, including myself, are pretty weak. And so all of the sudden, what was the deal that went on? The only reason that we're weak is because we don't know that we're strong. And that's what's going on with those who are raising and awakening. It will bring infinite strength back. You will begin, in time, you will see people being healed once again through love. You will see people begin to be healed by light workers, which is exactly what Yeshua was, which is exactly what his commandment for humanity was, is that you should be doing more healing than I've done. Where's that at? Most people that I know that have been in church their whole life have never even pondered to heal somebody, much less to do it. So the lie has worked exceedingly well. And so the woman of flesh said, not only this, but you will surely die. The serpent, the instructor, said, you will not surely die, for he said this to you out of jealousy. So why was that then imposed on us? I've asked, I don't know, maybe you don't think or think in those matters, maybe it's not that important, but to me, I asked the question, why would God not want us to know the difference of good and evil? Why would God give this commandment that you were not to know good and evil? And now you get an insight, maybe if you've been like me and you ask a lot of questions of the spirit realm, maybe you now can find a little bit of peace that it wasn't what you deem as God in the first place who said that. All of that narrative had nothing to do with the all. So what it does for you, dear Christian one, is it flips that teaching, totally upends it onto its head. And the serpent, the instructor, said, "You will not surely die, for he said this to you out of jealousy. Rather, what will happen is your eyes will be open, and you will be like gods, knowing good from evil." Wow. So then that's not a bad thing? Can I tell you right now that there are many people whose eyes are not opened? They cannot even find it inside of themselves to be able to rationalize good and evil. Look at our society. That's all you have to do is see that. We have to bring military people into our capital just to try to bring peace. Those people can't see their behavior and what it is and what it's doing to everybody. But dear one, you must ask yourself the same thing. Are you really seeing what your behavior does to other people? Or are you only worried about you? Because if not, then you're just in as much ignorance as anybody else is. Rather, your eyes will be open and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. And the female instructor was taken away from the serpent, so now the spirit has left. That's all it means. The spirit left the object, just as the spirit leaves the body. See, it actually does more for validating near-death experiences than maybe you have put together. Is our spirit capable of leaving our body? Yes. As we grow, and for those of who awaken and who begin to manifest the power of God, they also, at will be able to leave their physical body. There are people that are already functioning in that. Edgar Cayce functioned in that. He was able to leave his body at will. He laid down, had a trance, he went into the astral plane. That's what this is talking about. Knowing good and evil, and the female instructor was taken away from the serpent, and she abandoned it as something of the earth. And so the narrative they wrote in the Bible is now the snake, because it's bad and the spirit has left it, now it's horrible, and now it should be crushed. And that's why all humans have a fear of snakes, and it's a total lie. So they eat from the tree. The woman of flesh took from the tree and ate, and she gave to her husband as well. And thus these beings who had only a soul ate. Their imperfection became apparent in their ignorance. So what happened? Their eyes were open. What was the first thing that happened to Adam and Eve when their eyes were open, dear ones? Maybe the thing that you need to promote you into the spirit realm faster. It's quite obvious to me that the very first thing that happened to them is when their eyes were open, they saw themselves. Let me read it again so you understand. The woman of flesh, Eve, took from the tree and ate, and she gave to her husband as well. And guess what happened? The fulfillment of what was that tree was manifested. They immediately began to know. They did not know the difference between good and evil. There was no sin. There was. They had no knowledge of good and evil. And the minute that they ate, they began to have a knowledge of evil. Look at this. And thus these beings who had only a soul ate. Their imperfection became apparent in their ignorance. First thing that happens, they looked at themselves and they saw who they were. I've been preaching this crap for 30 years and I still can't get people to look at themselves. They recognized that they were stripped of the spiritual, and they took fig leaves and tied them around their naked bodies. The leader of the Archon came and said, "Where are you, Adam?" For he did not know what had happened. Does it occur to any of you that these spirit forces Call them archons, call them whatever you want to, call them demons, call them spirits, call them angels. I don't really care what word you put. It's all wrong. At minimum, we will just barely have any kind of a concept about how all of this really works. Remember, we've been reading and they've been telling us your words are just things that you use so you can try to make sense of a concept that your brain can't deal with. I hear this constantly from people who are more ascended than others. Constantly. I'm just using these words to try to help you understand a principle that you have no knowledge of. And Adam says, I heard your voice and I was afraid because I was naked and so I hid. Now we're back to the narrative of the Bible again. And the ruler said, why did you hide unless it is because you ate from the only tree from which I commanded you not to eat? You did eat. So all the narrative, but you were told that was God walking in the garden with Adam, and it wasn't God walking in the garden with Adam. It was our Creator who was corrupt. It is not the all. You see how easily they cut the timelines? And Adam said, the woman you gave me offered me the fruit, and I ate. And the arrogant ruler cursed the woman. So you want to know why women have been under all the stuff? That's why. In a nutshell. And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. And the rulers turned to the serpent and cursed its shadow so that it was powerless. And they did not know it was a form they themselves had shaped. From then on, the serpent was under the curse of the authorities. The curse was on the serpent until the perfect human was to come. The rulers turned to their Adam, and they took him, and they cast him and his wife out of the garden. They have no blessing, for they are also under the curse. So when you look around and you see the suffering amongst humanity, dear friends, what I just read to you tells you why humanity is in the state that we're in. Now, I would like to share a piece about the other end of this picture. And the other end of this picture is this has all been true and fixed, and you have zero possibility where you have been to fix this. You only get to live under the curse, suffer through your lifetime, and die. That is what you have been apportioned under the curse. You are under it already. And so the ruler turned to Adam. They took him. They cast him and his wife out of the garden. They have no blessing, for they are also under the curse. The rulers threw humanity into great confusion and a life of toil. So that was the outworking. That of which you sat around and moped and complained your whole life about how unfair it is, that was the purpose for them doing what they did. And all of that controls your frequency, and where do you end up? It works really good. So that their people might be preoccupied with the things of the world and not have time to be occupied with the Holy Spirit. So when I say things and people think I'm harsh when I say that you don't care to go study, it's really not. You're just preoccupied with being a human. You haven't ascended. You haven't even begun to awaken until you begin to recognize that you're not a human. And I can't help anybody do that other than put truth out there for you, and you either believe it and find out and go research and go study. Don't believe me, go find out for yourself. Go spend 5,000 hours like I do. And then maybe you'll know something. There's not any other way. So, what does it mean then? It means that there is a way out of the curse. You want to know the peace that Yeshua came to show us was the way out of the curse. How did we come out of the curse? We come out of the curse by dying to our flesh. That's the metaphor of the cross. Hang your body up and quit being a human and start being the spirit being that you are. That's how you change reality. That's larger than most people can deal with. For many of you, you've never even thought about what I just said. How do you lose your humanity? It's the question of the ages, dear one. How do you become the spirit being? Some of you have longings of your spiritual past life, and you can't even make sense of them. And some of you are really not all that concerned about it in the first place. That only speaks about you. The shift and the split that is going on and that is coming, friend, it's not what we think it is, and it doesn't look like what we think it looks like. Who you are inside is going to determine what happens to you in the next piece. And it's not like you're going to run down and you have to fall on your knees and confess. It ain't got anything to do with any of that. Do you recognize inside of yourself who you truly are? And if you don't, then I'm sad to say that you will remain in that state. And there's lots of prophecies over the last 20,000 years that validate what I just said to you is true. In fact, it's going to be the quiet separation. It's going to be the quiet separation. The universe already knows your frequency. That's why he said to me a month ago that you must be in alignment with me. You must align your frequency with mine. I didn't understand 2 months ago or a month ago when that was said to me what that meant. I didn't understand 2 years ago when he told me that there were spirit forces that were greater than homosexuality. What he meant, I do now. Just because you don't doesn't mean I don't. So what does it all mean for us? It means that we now have an opportunity, which I would hope none of you pass up. You say, well, how do I not pass it up? Well, that's a journey, friend. Everybody's journey is different. But inevitably, it's going to become you finding inside of yourself spiritually. So for all of those people who have scoffed, laughed, and made fun of not meditating, you're just hurting yourself. You're not hurting any other person except yourself. You can't not look inside. If you want to know the hidden secret, it's looking inside. It's being honest with yourself. I watched a teaching from somebody that I had never seen before. What was the spirit of it? One of the main things they did at the end of this 45-minute teaching is they began to stand up around this room, people with college degrees and people that have studied and scholars and all kinds of people. And the function of the thing was for each one of them that would to stand up and confess how they were petty. You understand, pettiness is part of ego. And you will not enter the presence with ego. John, in the book of John, says, I must decrease so that he, my inner man, can increase. I must allow my light, who I am as higher self, to overcome my carnalness, if you would. Remember, once again, the mind of somebody who is carnal cannot understand the spirit according to the scripture, neither should they be able to. Some of you've heard that scripture 100 times. I know you have. So if you are functioning according to all of these things, if you are functioning in your carnal mind and your carnal self instead of your spirit self, You have no understanding about anything that I've said. And there's only one way to remedy that. Is to go in and begin to tear the house down that you've lived in and begin to build the new house. And you can only do that if you're willing to look. They were right, guys. John was right when he said the things he said. Yeshua's teachings were right. This is all about us. The kingdom of God really is inside of me. Wow. See, there won't be any need for judgment because your behavior is going to be your judge. So I hope that you will take a hold of these things, pretty drastic on some levels, for those that have minds to open and will allow it. You see, maybe you got some answered that you had that you haven't ever quite understood if you've read the book of Genesis very often. Well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? I never found nobody that could give me answers. It wasn't because I didn't ask them. It was that I haven't met any people yet that would give me answers. What about it? What about it? So, we're going to take a few minutes. I'll ask the question. We do this song today, but I'm going to ask this question. How would you react if everything that you have been taught your life, if you found out that it wasn't true? How would you react? Would you deny and continue doing what you're doing? That's what many will do when you hear me say that it's going to be up to you to change those things. Would you put down the things that are false? And would you pick up and accept, even if they're very foreign from you, those things that are truth? Each one of us has to answer that question, dear one. There's no heaven and hell issue here. There's no saved or unsaved. Are you willing to accept that there might be more inside of you than what you have any knowledge of? That's one of the first steps. And of course, your decision on that means everything. So peace to each and every one of you guys. We're going to be back in about 5 minutes or so. I hope we bless you with some music. We're going to come back. We're going to look at some of these pieces. I think if you will stop and think, my mind's running at about 1 million miles an hour right now. But if you will stop and think, everything that we've been looking at always ends up tying together. So, we will return. bless each and every one of you guys. We've just been having conversation about some of the stuff that we read. You know, some of it fundamentally seems to be that it's not that far. That is to say that they changed the narrative. But I hope that you saw the overall picture, the significance of the differences that appear. It's pretty drastic. It takes God from being something that wants to hide the truth from us and puts it in a place of I almost want to say an orchestrated deception. It really does. It almost is becoming apparent that some of the religious beliefs they're not just accidental. And as you find the history out, then you recognize, well, it wasn't accidental at all. They had to intentionally change this stuff. And so that's really hard. As I said, we're going to look at that. But one of the first pieces that our first song here is called Trading Our Sorrows. And I think it's quite amazing when you put this concept and some of the stuff that has been shared with us to who Yeshua was and what Yeshua's message was. He came to give us a message that we are greater than we have any knowledge of. And there's so many things that Christianity can't answer that Yeshua said. And I don't know about you. I hope that some of you are seeing it as well. But some of these things, it's like, wow, that totally changes how everything was viewed. That Yeshua came to show us that this body is not the deal. Who we truly are inside, that is the deal. And there's much power in that. And so I hope that you will make the choice. I am making the choice, and others are making the choice all over this earth to trade your sorrows for the joy of our Creator. That's the name of the song, Trading My Sorrows. Hallelujah. How wonderful it is that we have the opportunity and the freedom to lay down. I heard somebody say recently, I loved it, it stuck with me, but he said that we have a total misconception on many levels. Our bodies, the atoms and the molecules that make up our body are energy. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. Science is proving this is true. Everything is energy, and our little energy bubbles, all trillions of them that make us up, they're not walking around sad. Our energy bubbles are bubbling, if you would. We should be bouncing. We should be able to truly do that. We should be able to, if you're scared today, please, dear one, don't be. If you are struggling with a desire to change, well then maybe, I don't know, maybe that's acceptable for you. I don't really know. But I'm not scared that God somehow, the plan is being exposed. This has to do with you. And one of the most powerful forces to lower your frequency and your vibration, dear friend, one of the most powerful forces that is used against yourself is fear. Now, when I say those words, you can understand why I can say Christianity controls you through fear. It's an energy thing. It's not foreign. It's actually in every area of every life. And so then we have to make a conscious decision to put off fear. Does that sometimes require a lot of work? Well, yes, of course, but many things that are good cost us lots of work. And so the next song we're going to do is the one I was talking about earlier, and it just totally fits with everything that's going on. What if you really will come to the understanding inside of yourself that the path and the road that we've been on might not necessarily be the right path? Would you be willing to change paths? That's really the question that the universe is asking every one of us. Will you be willing to change paths if it's exposed to you that the path you've been on your whole life is not the path that's going to bless you? And only you and only I can answer that question for our individual selves. The name of the song is Lay It All Down.
Would you lay it all down?
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You know, I don't think any of us think it's fun. To be quite honest with you, you know, it really is really difficult. Some of you may not think it appears that way, but it really is difficult looking at what all that we've learned through our life, and then you begin to look and you begin to see things, and the Spirit continues to speak. You know, one of the first things when I left Christianity that I was amazed by was that God was still speaking to me. It took me quite a while, like quite a few years, before I realized that God could care less about religion. He's about us. He loves you. He loves me. The purpose and the plan was not to kill us. The purpose and the plan is for us to take back what is actually our inheritance. And so when you begin to see that, I'm hoping that some of you are feeling this, but it's supposed to bring joy. Not that everything's easy, because it ain't. It ain't easy to look at ourselves. We've been so programmed that we can hide. But on the other side, what works out of those, for those who will do that, what works out of that is absolutely amazing. And you'll get to notice eventually, well, I wanted to say eventually and immediately, and I know those don't sound, but there are changes some of you've experienced that happen almost immediately when you begin to change. I think everybody here has experienced some form of that. Have we become perfected yet? No, I don't think so. But the sheer fact that you begin to walk away from the falsehood and walk towards the light brings great blessing in our lives. And so the next song kind of speaks to the theme. What does it really mean for us to let our souls shine? What does that really mean? You know, we've been told our whole life that we're to go into all the world and make disciples of men, and supposedly Jesus said that. And my dear friend, I don't believe anymore. I don't believe he ever said that, and certainly not in the context it was presented to us. But it is enough for each one of us as a light worker that has come into an incarnation. It is enough for us to begin to find and to release the light and the power that is inside of us. And when more people do that, more enlightenment comes, more people become enlightened, and guess what happens? We then move into a thing called the collective soul. And that collective soul is that I by myself am powerful, but 5,000 of me together are infinitely more powerful. And that's what this movement is all about. Little by little, one by ones, 10 by 10, 500s by 500s, as people begin to enlighten, we actually make it easier on the people who haven't yet enlightened. because now they're in an environment of light and love. I think you've all gone into it, walked into a building and felt a dense spirit, and it feels heavy, and it weighs on you. I always used to teach about that story of Yeshua going to that one little town, and this is absolutely for each one of us today, friend, because you're going to encounter this if you haven't already. But Yeshua went to a town, and this ascended master who had mastered the universe, if you would, in a way of saying that, Yeshua says that he only did a couple of little miracles because everybody in that town did not believe. And I used to marvel and teach in Christianity. Come on, if you've ever been in that situation, you feel ineffectual. All the good and all the light and all the things that you've been powerful with can, friend, by density, can be quieted. So for us, it's absolutely amazing as people begin to wake up and as you begin to see what we're going to see, and I think it's going to escalate, my personal opinion, but I believe it's going to escalate every year from here until whenever, that we're going to see an increase, and you're going to find that it's going to be easier and easier and easier to overcome densities that are in your life. And so if you're in fear about are you good enough, yes, you do have inside of you the power to do this of which I speak. You, each and every human on this earth, has the power. The only thing we have to do is make the choice. And the song is Soul Shine.
People renew your mind. With His Spirit will be fine. Gotta let your soul shine, shine till break of day. People renew your mind. With His Spirit will be fine. Gotta let your soul shine, shine till break of day.
Hallelujah. Indeed. I hope for every one of us, if we come away with nothing else, I hope that every one of us begin to become more and more and more and more conscious about letting that light that Yeshua talked about. You know, it's so crazy. There are pieces everywhere, dear friend, that are truths that oftentimes get overlooked. You know, I've shared this, I've said this in the past, that one of the most spiritual, powerful songs that exist is a song that's sung probably in almost every church, every Sun worship morning with the little kids or in the back room. So the place to be spiritually is with the little kids, right? That's why Yeshua said you must become like this little child. They just praise. They're not coming to ask for anything. They just praise from the joy that's inside of them. And this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. What an amazing thought process. I tell you, when we do that, we raise our frequency more than we have any understanding of. So the next song fits with that as well. While we're letting our soul shine, the other piece that we also do, and part of letting our soul shine, is the love and the gratitude that we have for our Creator. Friends, He didn't doom you to hell. He didn't doom you to hell. He created you for greatness. And so as we move through this process and as we go on, then we will begin more and more and more to see the goodness of God that we've looked for, maybe for some, their whole life. This one is one that helps that to happen. It's called Thank You for Love. I can't imagine anything more potent than for us simply to tell Source, the All, that you love Him and you thank Him for giving you an opportunity to come to this school and to learn. Thank you for love.
Walking down this rocky road, wondering where my life is leading. Must repent, turn away from sin.
Hallelujah. Thank you for love. Wow. When we come to Him with our soul shining and a thankful heart, my goodness, how could you have any fear about your frequency being too low? We'll be, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
That's fine.
Make an outlaw on that. No more biscuits and honey until supper. Let Mikey run that and you go get them for me. That worked. Think about that if we could smoke 4 briskets at a time. Oh. 35 minutes away. Well, I'll tell you what, here's what y'all do. Y'all jump in Mikey's truck as soon as we get done here, and y'all go down there and get pizzas. And we're gonna stay here and chew gummies, and Mikey's gonna hit Boat's pipe, and yeah, we're gonna do Oh, I can't do that maybe today's Saturday. No, I mean he's closed. See, Mariana? See what you did? As far as I know, I don't think. Only until noon. It's afternoon, Mariana. How much? Smoothed off the pizza. They were, you had said that a week or so, 2 weeks ago when those peaches, you said earlier they were 93 cents a piece or something. 97 cents a piece. Well, yesterday they were $1.32 a piece now, per peach. I'm sorry, $1.22. Yeah. They were, yeah. They were some big old plums. Oh, you did? And I'll tell you what, some homemade peach ice cream would be amazing. Doesn't that sound good? Just the thought of fresh peaches, you know. Sometimes they even fall. They don't even live up to the expectation, but the expectation in the mind of a big old juicy peach. Say that again. Who did? Careful about people that start giving free things away. They want something for that free. Maybe he went and got 25 pounds of peaches. Say it again. Well, if when we get done, you could probably be there at almost noon by that time. All right, never mind. I was trying to be kind, but you don't like my benevolence, so. No, Mariana, you can't go. All right. I guess when you're ready, Marianne. I don't know what's going on, but something is going on. All right. Well, we're going to spend just a few minutes to get here together to look at. For those of you who may not have been, we have gone through the front end of this, and these are kind of affirmations. And I find every week that they have a good message, a good good thought about us, and you'll see today how it could mix with what I've been sharing with you guys. You know, it's really crazy to recognize fear as being really our worst enemy. It kind of makes me wonder, was it just accidental or was it really the spirit when I believe it was Roosevelt who said that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. We really don't, I'm not quite sure, always have the revelation that fear is actually the biggest destroyer of our spirit realm that there is. In fact, it's certainly believed that fear will lower your frequency to a point that you will not experience all that you otherwise could have. And so, in the course of trying to learn and live and walk, we have to begin then to look at and start examining some things. So fear will lower my frequency and make me much denser, and then joy will raise my frequency. Been really crazy, and we're going to find it here today because it was something that I wanted to say anyways. There's some levels and some layers of things that we individually can do for our life to help raise our frequency. Well, there's really probably hundreds of them, and some of them we're just doing naturally. Okay, so if you're in a situation and you're around someone and you feel really negative in their aura, and for those of you who work with people who might like to stand around and whine and complain about how bad things are, that might be a place where you can real readily put the spirit to work and go, you know, I don't dislike this guy. In fact, I love him because he's part of us. Whether we realize that or not, it's true. But I don't want my aura to be affected negatively by somebody else. And so we then make a choice to change our timeline slightly, and those things I think we have to do a thousand times. I mean, I've changed lines at the Walmart because I don't want to stand behind the person that's in front of me because of the energy that's coming off of them. And if you guys will grow and learn to be more attentive, you will start recognizing the infinite. Friends, this isn't BS. This spirit thing that's going on is real. It is knowable. It is seeable. Some of you, if you haven't, some of you will begin at some point to start looking at people, and you will start seeing the sadness. You'll have no other reason to know. I get this stuff all the time, and it's just like, man, I have to be honest. I've probably cried for other people more in the last couple months than ever in my whole lifetime, because it's almost like I can look at somebody and I can sense the sadness inside of them, and that's wonderful. But it's also something that you have to learn how to deal with, because there's a lot of sadness in this world. And if you allow yourself to become constantly emotionally charged by the sadness of other people, then so you have to set boundaries. And I've found that sometimes the best thing to do when you look at someone and you see that sadness is just simply to send love to them. Say a prayer for them, you know. Father, help them, whatever their load is, help them lighten their load, send, whoever. And if he sends you after you say that, then you need to be obedient to go and show that person some love. But one of the things that will lower our frequency more than anything is fear. In fact, as long as you're in fear, so for those of you who may still be struggling with, well, but what if he's wrong, and what if hell is real and the devil really is, and God is going to judge me and kill me? Well, I promise you that you ain't ever going to rise in frequency as long as that's what has control of your mind. And since everything, the all is mind, I shared that with you guys early on, that the all is mind. So everything that goes on, everything that is created comes from your mind. And so if you're getting a creation that you don't like, then you have to change your mind. And so where before maybe you would have sat around with the girls and you would have, drank a cup of coffee and gossip, maybe now you have to excuse yourself and not sit around the girls and have the gossip session, or for the guys to go hang out and drink beer. And I don't say that there's anything wrong with beer. I like my gummies a lot, but the other side of that matter is if that brings you to a place. And so before I read this, because I wanted to come here, it's a piece of a revelation that I think that the universe is working out and helping me. Those of you who've been with me, you've heard me for the last 2 or 3 years talk a lot about separation. And because of where we were at, and certainly where I'm at, I was correct, but I wasn't complete. And so, emphatically, I stand behind the words of separation. If you are around someone, I don't care who they are, and they are lowering your vibration, then you need to separate yourself. Whether that be walk to another room, whether that be, change the conversation, somehow you have to cause separation between that. Okay? So that is the essence. Does that sometimes end up being people that we know and love, family members and people that we're friends with? Of course it is. It's inevitable. We're all human. And so, but you still have to protect yourself, but now there is a new piece that's coming out. And all that time God was saying separation, 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 separation. And now I'm starting to learn that there is actually a separation that is going on in the universe, and there is a separation that is going on the earth. And so while I do think it includes all of the things that I've said, I definitely believe that was the understanding was as far as I could go at that point. And I do feel like, and for some of you who may not, totally understand, or maybe you haven't really heard some of the things in the manner in which might have been better, the separation that's going on this earth right now, and I think if you will open your eyes, you will see this. The separation that's going on in earth right now is frequency, friends. And I'm not talking, though you should go research and read Edgar Casey's prophecy that has to do with the year 2025, and to read Dolores Cannon's prophecy that has to do with 2025, that there is, and I'm sorry, to read the Cherokee prophecy of the two sons that was spoken thousands of years ago by the Cherokee Indians, all about the same thing, that we are coming to a time in history, we are in that time when there is beginning to be a separation. I look at now, I'm sitting here, even as I'm talking to y'all, and my mind runs back, and it's like God was telling you that a separation is coming. It never was about the verses that he kept giving me and kept tying in separation to us. It was about that there is separation in humanity that is coming. Not so much us leaving other people as us, higher frequency, leaving other people. Exact same understanding, but one is this big, that's the carnal mind, and one is this big, that's the spirit mind. And so it's so crazy. He constantly is revealing and bringing knowledge and giving downloads. And so how horrible would it be that we were lost in low density, low frequency, if you want to, because I don't really know other words, purgatory. And I don't know how the universe is going to deal with that long term. It's really not important that I just need to know that there is coming on humanity a split in humanity. And it's going to be based on the frequency at which you live. Why is it vitally important that we get this? Friend, this is self-preservation. This is self-spiritual preservation. And so I'm so thankful that he gives us the opportunity beforehand, because here's the thing. For those who don't know and who aren't doing the things, one of the things we can do to raise our frequency is service. Just so you know, there is more power to what Yeshua meant when he said that I did not come to be served, I came to serve. So here's the thing for all you Christians that I've seen. If we would take Yeshua's sayings and we would isolate them from whatever else is going on in the narrative, and if we would truly examine the depth of the metaphysical and the mystical saying that Yeshua is saying, we would find the path to enlightenment just through Yeshua's words. When he says to you that he did not come here to be a servant, to be served, what he's also saying to you is, if you are one of mine, you also will not come here to be served. You will come here to do service. And one of the most powerful frequency raisers you can put in your life is to begin to become service-minded. How can I help? How can I love? See, that takes you out of the standing around complaining because somebody asked you to do something. You might be totally justified in why that bothers you, and it still lower your frequency. It has nothing to do with what you think or how you feel. It has to do with what is, and so if you can grab the revelation that this is all about frequency and the elevation of our frequency, then the frequency will become very, very sacred, and we will begin to protect that more than maybe we have in the past. And so you owe it to yourself, not to anybody else. You owe it to yourself. I think we oftentimes don't realize that the Creator, there is such a huge macro plan for all that's going on in all universes all at the same time. But I was, about a week or 2 weeks ago, this is still, when I stop and think about it, it moves me. I was standing in a situation, there had been a really heavy spirit power that day. It seemed like I could get moved very easily, and I was asked a question, and the question was, do you hear it? Do you hear the singing? This is so totally bizarre, it's not even funny. And so I then attuned my mind. When I was asked the question, I attuned my mind because my mind had not been attuned to listening for something. And so I started listening, and I started just hearing mumbling and noise in the background almost. And that noise kept getting louder. And I was listening more intently and more intently and more intently. And all of a sudden, it came to a volume level. And I don't really know the significance spiritually of what source was even, why this was necessary, but it was, and I accepted it as sacred. But so he asked me, did I hear the music? Did I hear the song? And when the volume, and I think really it was me aligning with him, getting my receiver tuned in clearer. And when I did, and maybe that was the sole purpose of it, I don't really know. But I began to hear voices get clearer and clearer. And it's so strange because it really took me aback. But the song that was being sung, it really was just one little line, but it was to a rhythm, and it was over and over again. I don't know if it's true or not, but it almost seemed to me like it would have had to have been the all singing this song. But the song said this. You take it for what it's worth to you. The song said, I am everywhere, and yet my heart is breaking. And it was at a pace and at a rhythm. And I don't think it's ever been anything that I've ever really considered, that the actions and the behaviors of humans on this earth have an effect on our Creator. I can't imagine love and loving people and their behavior not having an effect on me. And so ponder for a second. What if, when we behave ill to each other, what if we're only concerned about ourselves and not concerned about our brothers and sisters who are part of us? Does that really affect him at all? So think about that if you were walking in your everyday life and it came into your consciousness that your behavior was not pleasing to Source and you were vexing him. Would it make you change your behavior? For some people, the answer is unequivocally no. They won't change their behavior at all. I'm not quite sure that's a person of frequency, though. And so, for each and every one of you, you can take that, and Source will have to give you understanding for how you resonate with that. But I know what it did to me. I know how it made me feel. And really overwhelmed. Wouldn't it be crazy to stand in the Akashic record and the first person you have to examine is how you made your Creator feel? I think it might be easier to get over all the others than that one. So that's another story for another day. So James writes in our morning and evening affirmations, and as a man thinketh. I hope some of you have gotten some revelations from this stuff. There's great food. This is not acorns and gruel here. This is not pig food. This is meat for the mature. You can say these little old words and they can make you feel warm and fuzzy and not have a thing to do with changing who you are. And on the other side, there will be people who will be massively changed by these simple words. And so James says on the fourth morning and the fourth evening, when the tongue is well controlled and wisely subdued. So should we really say everything that we think? Huh? How many of you have ever gotten yourself in trouble by saying what you thought? Absolutely. How do we fix that? We fix it by looking inside and recognizing that our words have effects on people and changing the words so that we change the effect because other people are important. And so, listen, because here's the root of it. When selfish impulses and unworthy thoughts no longer rush to the tongue demanding utterance, so stop and ponder that line for a little bit. Selfish impulses, I only care about what I care about. I'm going to say it. I don't care what it makes them feel like. And unworthy thoughts no longer rush to the tongue demanding utterance. Do you remember in the scripture quite a few years back I shared with you guys that the scripture says that just because you had a thought and you wanted to say something or you see something that's wrong, it doesn't necessarily mean it's okay for you to say whatever you want to say. And we live in a time, all you have to do is watch our politicians on television. I mean, it's bad enough that the way that we sometimes, probably without thinking, say words in the language that is used more and more common, and I'm speaking as much of myself as anybody. But is it really what you want is somebody to stand up there that's in the House of Representatives and cuss out the President of the United States? Does that make you feel powerful? Because, friends, that's the society we live in. And if you think that that won't kill your frequency, you're dead wrong. So now we have our own political system polluting us. It does matter. Your words and my words have a lot more power than we realize. And so when we can learn to control our selfish impulses, I told you about the thing I watched last night where they had the meeting where the people were standing up and they were voicing to the congregation the behavior that came to their mind of them being petty. Well, somebody didn't do something that I liked and because of that I acted petty. I've had people who would deny that that's even the case, that they weren't guilty of being petty. What does that say to you? When we can learn that we can have those thoughts, but we also need to have those thoughts. Sometimes sharing is not caring. Sometimes not sharing is caring. And we have to try to be cautious, and we have to judge those things. Remember, the truth is still exists that if you would judge yourself, you wouldn't need other people to judge you. In fact, that also brings a connotation that people who do not judge themselves will be judged by other people because they refuse to do it. So wouldn't it be better for us to take that authority for ourselves over ourselves? No, mind, I'm not saying those words, although I feel exactly like that. But it's not. So here's a question on this journey to higher frequency that I hope will help somebody. If we would learn how to stop and ask ourselves one simple little question, not in every situation, but in most situations, it would help you make the righteous decision very quickly. And that question would be this: how is this going to increase my frequency? Ask yourself that question. If you start this exercise that I'm talking about right now, you will ask yourself that question 1,000 times a day. When you walk into a situation and you begin to do a behavior and you stop yourself and you become conscious, that's a foreign word. You become conscious of your behavior and you ask yourself, stop and ask yourself, how is this going to raise my frequency? You know what you will find? You have a lot less to say. Because most of the time, the people who are destroying our frequency and lowering us to density, most of the time is ourself. And so you say, well, I was justified, I was righteous for doing that. And you know what? On a human level, you may very well have been. On a human level, you may very well have been justified for that behavior. I've seen lots of injustices. And I've spoken against a lot of them. I don't say that I should have spoken against all I have. So when we no longer let selfish impulses and unworthy thoughts, now see, even in that there's a defining factor. There are thoughts, if there are unworthy thoughts, then you also understand that there are thoughts that are worthy. If we see someone that is being mean or beating, let's say we see somebody on the street and they're being mean. What was it? Mariana read me an article just recently, I think, wasn't it, Marianne, where the woman was sitting on a bench in some town, changing her baby's diaper, and she looked up and some guy clocks her in the face and beats the crap out of her and steals her kid. Should you say something if you're there? Should you do something if you're there? You see what I'm saying? That's a worthy thought. But we have thousands of those that aren't that that aren't that worthy, and we need to learn how to let those thoughts go and not move and react to those thoughts. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, and I certainly have been guilty of this, a lot of times our righteous indignation ain't so righteous. I'm just saying. But when we no longer rush to the tongue demanding utterance, and I love there's a significance to why he did that. Your tongue by itself never lashes out about anything. Your tongue only lashes out when your mind tells it to. And so this is a conscious thought that you had. And if it's a conscious thought that you had, then you can also change the conscious thought that you have. Or take control of your tongue, if you would. When the speech has become harmless, it's very pretty, pure, gracious, gentle, and purposeful. And no word is uttered but in sincerity and truth. Then are the 5 steps in virtuous speech accomplished, which is very similar to the practice that I've been practicing all of this week, which is, how is this going to help my frequency? And it is the things that you say, but it's really more the things that you think on. So if you look at it in that manner, then it's the thoughts you have even when you don't say something. How is this thought that I'm entertaining in my mind, how is it helping me? How is it going to help me spiritually? How is it going to help me frequency-wise? How is it going to help me not hurt this person? Because I know that if I hurt this person in the Akashic record, I'm going to have to deal with that. So this doesn't even end today. This goes on for eternity. I think maybe if we had that perspective, we might change the way that we behave and we acted towards people. So there are these 5 steps in virtuous speech. We know if there's a virtuous, we know that there's a not virtuous. Judge accordingly. Then is the second great lesson in truth learned and mastered. Make pure thy heart, and thou wilt make thy life rich, sweet, and beautiful. Well, I really believe that that's what Source wants. The elevation, the rising up, the splitting, all of those things, some of you may not fully understand. It's okay, you don't necessarily need to. You just need to understand that there are things going on in the spirit realm. And they're functioning right here on this earth right now in humans. If you get all of that put together right in your mind, I promise you the universe will bring the rest of the info. But it does matter. That's something I've been pondering a lot. My negativity affects the world just like my positivity affects the world. That's crazy. That gets outside of you. And so on the fourth evening, James shares with us, and this is very beautiful as well as what we just read. Having clothed himself with humility. Who did that? The first question a man asks himself, I would like you to understand, seldom does this happen outside of that. When we say the word namaste, namaste is the connotation of I humbly bow to you. Pride and arrogance will not enter the universe kingdom. Everyone who is light will become humble. It wouldn't hurt if we started practicing that now. Having clothed himself with humility. First off, that's something you have to do. Secondly, it tells you what you have to do. You have to begin to function humbly. And the first question a man asks himself once you become humble, how am I acting towards others? How am I acting towards others? That fits exactly with the concept of service, which is one of the most powerful tools we can use. Whether you recognize it or not, service to others, even though it may not always be, they may not be grateful. There's a lot of things that people's behaviors won't feed you, but knowing that you are doing what's pleasing in the universe and that your frequency is high is supposed to trump the human failures. Love covers a multitude of sins. You have no idea, and I have no idea how huge that statement really is. Because we've been so sin conscious that we focus on people's sins and we judge them according to their sin. And yet, the Bible itself tells us that love doesn't see sin. I can't fully, I have not washed all of my past learning out. And I struggle with some of those principles. But I recognize and I see that that is the path of peace. The one that will do the most for elevating our frequency is forgiveness. I think about the scriptures where James tells us that without forgiveness you can't be forgiven. I used to marvel at that one in Christianity, even though I struggled with unforgiveness. So the most powerful tools that we have is loving and service to other people and forgiving people for their failures. But I'm going to tell you the one that's the hardest to do, and that's forgiving yourself. How many of you could stop and in a split second in a conversation, you could think, if a subject popped up, it would take you to something that you failed at in your life that you still to this day regret? If it has that much emotional power over you, you haven't forgiven yourself. Did you mess up? Sometimes greatly. Which has nothing to do with the fact that you must forgive yourself. It's only when we can learn to do that that we will really be free. Yeshua came and he learned to forgive. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. I can't imagine anything more humble than that statement. Did he say they weren't sinning? No. He simply said it doesn't matter. I must forgive anyways. And so, how am I acting towards others? Those should be the first things that come to our mind as we enter into humility. And what this is really talking about is it's talking about the path that I've been talking on, about us taking these things from on a book page and turning them into a practical lifestyle. It's not something that you did one time and that was sufficient. It's not saying, oh, well, I forgive them, which is not forgiveness at all. And the real weird thing about the whole forgiveness issue is you're not forgiving them. Your forgiveness of them, yes, it can free them from karmic energy. Absolutely, that's true. You can psychically attach and drain energy off of people, which is something that we also, as we learn how not to let ourselves get locked onto somebody's bad behavior, so we begin to drain their energy. But then we began to ask these questions, and they're not questions about me anymore. Well, nobody loves me, and everybody's mean to me, and I'm always... That's victim mentality. I don't say there's no truth to it. I think all victim mentality is probably exactly correct. But that's not the question. The question is what is this doing to build my frequency? And the answer unequivocally is nothing. It's simply destroying your frequency and dropping you back down into low density. Now, if you don't believe that there's anything happening in the cosmos and there's not going to be any trumpet call and the sound of Jesus telling you that he's coming back to pick you up, and the change that's going to happen is you're going to change, and then when the change happens, you will be with those that are changed. There's no roll call, friend. What's coming in front of us, there is no roll call. You are either walking in a higher frequency of love or you are not. That's all that the universe is concerned with. It wants those who will, and it will let the others stay in a dense state. Nobody's going to say a word to you about it. When the split happens, you'll be where you are. You either are high density and high frequency, or you're high density. And wherever you are, that's where you're going to end up. And so, one of the ways that we decrease the density and increase the frequency is when we think about other people. What am I doing to others? How am I thinking of others? See, we don't quite really understand the psychic power that we possess. When you are in a situation and somebody offends you and you think negative thoughts towards them, you are psychically attaching to them, even if you don't know that that's what you're doing. That's why the Bible tells us that when people talk about you behind your back, that they make your belly sick. When they say the term belly, I more firmly would believe that that was probably the connotation of your solar plexus chakra. And they attach to your energy and drain you. And they're over there. There's somebody you worked with today that didn't like you. You didn't resonate with them. And they think ill thoughts about you. And then you wonder why your day is so dense. It happens all the time. It happens by people you know. All the time. And it didn't take anything but a thought. And so, what am I doing to others, and how am I thinking of others? Two of the most profound questions you'll ever ask yourself daily. What am I doing, and what does this do to my frequency? Does it increase my frequency to get mad, or any of the other emotions that we use against somebody? Is this blessing me, or is it blessing them, or is it blessing neither of us? Because sometimes that's the case. Nobody wins. And so, are my thoughts of and acts towards others prompted by unselfish love. It's the weirdest thing for me. Maybe some of you have experienced it, but I was going through a situation that somebody was acting ill, and it weirded me out because I caught myself saying, well, I love you. I don't care how you act. That's never been my makeup. And so I know that the words are changing, that there is shifting, because their ill words had no power over me. And oftentimes, friends, we let people control us all day long. Maybe you get in a fight with your spouse and you have the most horrible day you've had, or you go to work and you get in a fight with a coworker or your boss and the whole day is horrible. That stuff has effect on us. And so, how are we affecting? How are our thoughts and our actions affecting other people? As a man, in the silence of his soul, ask himself these searching questions. Where does all of this go on? How long does it take? Milliseconds. You can put yourself in the dumpster of life in 2.2 milliseconds. Or you can lift yourself in 2.2 seconds above the negativity that you would have otherwise resided in. As a man in silence of his soul, ask himself these searching questions. So you could then ask yourself, am I asking myself, am I even thinking any of this? Because if you're not, then you might want to examine you. You might need to take a look. So as if we will choose to do so, then we ask ourselves searching questions. You will unerringly see where he has hitherto failed. Do you know why we can't see where we failed? Because we see where we failed. We look at ourselves critically instead of looking at ourselves with love, and we get into shame and condemnation, which further lowers your vibration, which makes you more dense, which makes you more sad, which makes you more upset, it makes you more emotional, it makes you more volatile, it makes you more angry, it just makes you more, and it makes you more, and it makes you more, and it makes you more. And once you get into that makes you more, then that makes you more turns into more. And unfortunately, as some of you may live with people who have no problems in going to the makes you more. You ever been around somebody who could fly off the handle pretty quickly? I'm one. I lived around me. Makes you more. Doesn't seem to ever fix anything. Just makes more problems. And so, as we begin to get outside of ourselves, get inside of ourselves so we can get outside of ourselves. You have to change you before you can help other people. But it should be our heart. We should be crying out every day to the universe to help us to learn how to heal people. You know, when we were looking at Yeshua with Anna on Wednesday nights, you saw that Yeshua did not heal everybody in a supernatural way. But I'll tell you today, he did heal everybody. Sometimes your physical body is the last thing that's important. You're not going to have it eternally, but who you are inside is going to be with you eternally. I personally believe as much sickness as there is in this country, that most of that sickness comes from the sickness inside. And so when we walk in peace with Source, We generally live a better life. We generally have less physical anomalies. Doesn't mean that if you're, 59 years old that you're not suffering from old age. That's not what I'm saying. I got some people here shaking their head going, no. The physical part of our body is going to die. We make it the priority. And it is a priority, certainly. It houses our spirit. I don't say don't give it any focus. But what if we focus more on the spiritual aspect than the physical aspect? It's just a question somebody has to ask themselves. So, I hope you'll take that away with you. If you haven't been, if you have, I applaud you. You're finding the path and you're finding goodness and stuff. But ask yourself that. How is this going to affect me spiritually? And you'll be surprised how you begin to change rather easily, actually. It's not as difficult as it might seem. You'll either answer yourself, and the answer to yourself will be in rebellion. And there's a whole, that opens a whole, that's not even the same answer. I'm talking about now people who have pure hearts. I'm not talking about people with impure hearts. They're capable of doing anything. I'm talking about people with pure hearts. And if you have a pure heart and you ask yourself that question, your higher self will give you the answer. Usually it's something along the lines of probably not. It's probably not going to lift your frequency a bit. Okay, then if it's not going to benefit me, why waste my time doing it? So peace to each and every one of you. I hope you go through this week, have an amazing week, and you find love. And I hope more than finding love, I hope you give love everywhere you go, to everybody you meet. They're all part of you. So shalom to each and every one of you. Peace to you. I hope you will take some of this and allow this seed to grow inside of you. Namaste.